As the saying goes, April showers bring May flowers. It was near the end of the 14th century when English author Geoffrey Chaucer wrote the following in his Canterbury Tales. When April the sweet showers fall, that pierce March's drought to the root and all, and bathed every vein in liquor that has power to generate therein and sire the flower. That is, of course, a translation from the Middle English, which ain't so easy. The poem as we know it today, April showers bring May flowers, more closely resembles the following poem that was published in 1557 by Thomas Tusser in a small book called 100 Good Points of Husbandry. In that book he wrote, "Sweet April showers do spring May flowers." And I think the word spring there is supposed to be a verb. We're all familiar with springtime being a time when new life springs forth from the old. And so we'll start right out here with something that does have flowers in it, and bees too. The first game I want to talk about this week is a game called Apiary. Now I know that Stonemaier has just come out with a game recently that's called Apiary. This is not that game. It's a completely different game, and so I apologize for the confusion. But this is a family-oriented dice game with cards and fits in our new little half box here. Now, as I get into the rules here in just a second, you may recognize some aspects of existing games here that are brought together in Apiary. It's an amalgamation of different games that are going to be familiar to bowling games, set collecting games, some old favorites like Yahtzee or Roll For It or Sharpshooters. They're all old favorites in the dice game category. The NewVenture Apiary dice game comes with 18 cards, as you see laid out here. They're in color-coded sets of 3 each, and each set represents a hive. And your objective is to acquire as many of these cards as you can for their points, but also to acquire complete hives, which gives you some bonus points. It also comes with these colorful dice, which depict different colored flowers, plus different numbers of bees that you will use to claim these cards. Each turn goes like this. You will decide to target one of these cards. And say, for instance, I want to go for this card right here. This card has 3 requirements shown in the 3 rectangles. The card is worth 3 points. First, roll all 8 dice. Now look over the dice to see if you have achieved the combination shown in one of the requirements on that card. If you have, place those dice alongside the card. It may be only 1 die, depends on the card. Then, using the remaining dice, roll again in an attempt to fulfill another of the requirements on that card. If you do, place those dice by the card and continue. If you don't meet any of the remaining requirements, you're not necessarily done. You may choose to sacrifice 1 die, then continue rolling what's left. Eventually, you'll either win the card or end up with too few dice to continue. In either case, when your turn is over, just pass the dice to the next player. But there's one other aspect of the game that's very important and a little nasty. You can choose to target a card that has been acquired by another player. When your turn comes around, declare that target card and roll for it as usual. There's just one additional requirement. You must roll an additional die with 1 B on it to gain the card. And finally, when you acquire all 3 cards of a hive, they become safe from being taken by another player. So you'll want to go for those hive sets and lock in your score. And remember, when you have all 3 cards of a hive, you gain the additional point for each card when you add up your final score. Now you may reach a point later in the game when it becomes obvious that you cannot win. Now you have a choice at that point. You can either continue to play a game and try to steal cards from other players, or you can pass your turn, and it allows the other players to continually try to steal your cards from you. You can play a little nastier, though, and intentionally target the cards from the people who are in the lead so that it makes it more difficult for them to win. But generally by that time, the game's going pretty quickly. It'll be over soon, and then you can set up again for a rematch. I find that there's a lot of stand-up moments in this game. The excitement of that die roll and seeing can they make it or can they can't, you know. It's a great little game for that sort of tension-building situation, and it's very enjoyable. It can get loud. So if you think you're interested in Apiary, the dice game from NewVenture Games, please check it out. The link's in the show notes below to go and buy your own copy from our website. The second game this week is called Desperate Rescue. It's kind of based on the Viking Taffel games in that the objective of the two players is different. The Desperate Rescue board is quite unique. It's a circular pattern here. And right at the center, you'll see this red peg. This is the prisoner in its cell. So some people say that this prisoner has been wrongly accused of a capital crime. He's entirely innocent and should go free. The white pieces are the rescuing troops coming in there to rescue that prisoner from this dungeon. And the black ones are the guards attempting to thwart that rescue. The game begins with the guards placing the prisoner in the cell at the center of the keep, and then placing their 8 guards wherever they wish within the 2 inner circles of the board. The rescuers are then placed anywhere the player likes on the outer 2 rings of the board. The guards will get the first turn. Moves are made 1 space at a time along the lines of the board in any direction. Guards may jump over a rescuer to a vacant space beyond, again following the lines. The rescuer then is removed from the board in the usual jump and capture method. Rescuers also move 1 space in any direction or jump a guard in the same way. Or they may move the prisoner 1 space in any direction. The prisoner cannot jump a guard, but the guards can jump the prisoner. If this happens, the prisoner is returned immediately to the cell. Only the prisoner can occupy the dungeon cell at any time. Turns alternate until a win condition is met. The guards win if the rescuers are eliminated or if they abandon their rescue attempt. The rescuers win if the prisoner reaches the outer ring of the board, escaping to freedom. This is a great little challenge and not as easy as it may seem right off the bat. A lot of people have been having a good time with this game. So I encourage you to check out Desperate Rescue from NewVenture Games. The link is in the show notes here. The third game this month is called Auras. It's a little peg game, but it's very much different than the Desperate Rescue game. It's still a game for 2, and it's quite a bit more thinky, if you get what I mean. It's based on a computer game from the 1960s that was written by John Horton Conway. That game was called Life, and it's seen a lot of different incarnations over the years. The idea being that when a piece is placed, it influences the spaces and the pieces around it in a certain way. And that's where Aura's inspiration came from. Here's how to play the game Auras. And when you place a peg anywhere on the board, its aura will influence the 4 spaces orthogonally adjacent to it. If you should end a turn with 2 of your pegs adjacent to the same empty hole, the cumulative auras of your 2 pegs allows you to place a peg in that surrounded hole. That newly placed peg cannot cause a chain reaction with other pegs that might already have been there. It's only the peg you placed at the start of your turn that has this effect. Let's play through a bunch of examples. Placing a peg in this position would influence both of the neighboring empty positions because of the already placed peg. Therefore, you can now claim both of these positions. Placing a peg in this position would influence both of these positions due to the 2 adjacent pegs here and here. This arrangement is a little more obvious maybe. Placing a peg here would allow you to claim both of these positions, now surrounded by 2 of your own pegs. here's a situation that allows you to claim 3 new positions on the board with the placement of just 1 peg. Now then, a position can be neutralized. When a peg is surrounded on all 4 sides, that peg will be removed and replaced with a black peg by the player who placed the 4th peg. Any peg that's removed by this process is taken by that player who caused the configuration, and the peg is kept for scoring at the end of the game. The game ends when one player has placed all 20 of their pegs, or when all 10 black pegs have been placed. Then the score is calculated like this: 1 point for each peg that a player has on the board, plus 2 points for each of the opponent's pegs that the player has won during the game. And so there's quite a variety of games for you this week to try out. We've got the little dice game here with the cards. We've got the jump and capture kind of technique there. And we've also got the thinky game here with all the pattern making. There's always an opportunity to add to your game collection from the NewVenture catalog. We invite you to come and visit the website and look through these games and others. Be sure to check all the links down below. And once again, I thank you very much for your support, and I want you to be sure to play every day.